Welcome to the Heart Wide Open Wellness Podcast, where we explore therapy, Kundalini Yoga, and all things holistic wellness. I'm Hannah Zachney, LMFT, International Retreat Leader, and Curious Human. Whether you're tuning into us via social media or any of the major podcast platforms, we're so grateful to have you here. Here's to opening our hearts and exploring life together. Welcome to the Heart Wide Open Wellness Podcast. Today we have Kathleen Klug, and we were introduced for several reasons, which is always confirming when multiple people in your world are saying you need to talk to this person. And we met. I learned of her book, and it's Start With One. We'll talk a lot about this today. And since then, you have been able to be a guest on my membership for my Heart Wide Open Women's Wellness membership and share some of what you share with the world and some of your specialties and some of what you've learned over the course of time. And you're here today. So I'm so happy to have you. Thank you
for having me.
Of course. And professionally, I will just let the audience know that Kathleen Klug is a 40-year veteran in the health and wellness field who currently works as a health educator for Kaiser Permanente, as well as a private health coach. She holds a degree in addiction studies and completed training for her certificate as an integrative nutrition health coach at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. She authored the book, Start With One, a simple approach to upgrade your health, body, mind, and spirit to inspire and bring hope and grace to the work of behavior change and personal growth, which is so in line with all the way that we take approach and the holistic wellness. It's not just a part of it, it's all of it, but then also just to simplify it. So it's so powerful to bring it down. I say something all the time that the more I learn, the more simple the advice should be, right? You think you learn all of this and it's like add, but really it's just so the simpler, the easier, the better, and the more the results can grow from there. Yeah?
Absolutely. There's a saying, reduce it to the ridiculous.
Oh, I like that.
We when we complicate things, we get sometimes stuck. This is where people get stuck or paralyzed and they don't know what to do.
Yes.
And when you keep it really simple, it's much more accessible. It's much more friendly, and it's just kind, because we can do that. We can do simple. And the idea, I was just thinking, even driving over here, what is my message? And I know my message.
Yes.
But there's this underline of course it's health, because I've been doing health and wellness and fitness for so many years. But it's really about unhealthy change, behavior change. But underneath it, that really it all sits on is love and grace and kindness for self. And I think that leads any kind of change, right? I mean, I know you do a lot of behavioral change and it's a different aspect, but the same thing is like, how can we just with kindness and love for ourselves grow, expand, accept, change? And that's what my message is. I feel like my message is one of hope.
I love that.
Thank you.
Well, without hope, I mean, where are you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We can do things. We can do hard things. And I work with people who some are in a really bad health situation. And little by little, with small changes that compound, they're getting healthier.
Could you just speak to that to share kind of broader picture? What is the demographic that you usually work with? What are the main pain points and concerns and issues that you address? And then how is that? Did that bring you to write this book, or is that just you have that and then you wrote the book?
Everything did. I've worked in fitness and wellness and health for so many years, and I've worked as a trainer. I'm my own personal health coach now with my own groups, and then I work at Kaiser in their health department with facilitating groups for them. And so the clients, participants, range from very, very healthy that just want to get better, that want to get stronger, to ones that really this is about, life or death in some cases. I mean, their health is so bad. And so they're confronted with, I need to change. So I work with different people. And what I found was it's the same process. That's the thing. It's the same process. And, wherever you are in your health, if you're in really good health, you can always get healthier, meaning we're always in motion. It's just, what direction are you moving? Do you continue to expand and get better and to get healthier? So wherever you are, it's like our mental or spiritual health, as long every year, every day, we have an opportunity to grow, expand, become. So it doesn't matter where you are. It's the same process.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I was inspired to write this book because I knew, and I work with so many people who were stuck. And of course, I look at health, but it's a simple approach to upgrade your health, body, mind, and spirit. And I've worked with some very healthy people that have some really negative or poor thinking patterns, or they don't have a sense of hope or purpose. And we are, as an integrated being, health is the health of our integration, body, mind, and spirit. So I really, really wrote it for people to help them get unstuck. And I experienced that in my journey, and I really learned what integration was in my forgiveness story.
Can you share more and
Yeah.
and even define what integration means from this perspective?
Yes, integration is the balance and harmony of our body, mind, and spirit. It's really acknowledging and knowing that, for example, what we eat affects how we think. I mean, we know this more and more too with our gut health and connection. It affects our cells. It affects our energy. What we think literally speaks to our cells. And talk about this, the gut-brain axis. I mean, everything is connected, right? We know this when we get fearful from a thought, maybe a worry. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. Our stomach can get tied up in knots. So, I mean, we know this connection.
Yeah.
And this idea of purpose and belonging and love and community, that's that spirit food. So when I say integration, I mean, as an integrated whole, body, mind, and spirit, it is the harmony and balance of this.
Yeah.
So, and my experience with this, I didn't call it integration. I had no idea. This was in my 20s. But, going back, I grew up in an alcoholic home, and where there was a lot of violence and craziness. And I was one of 8 kids, which was so wonderful. And
that's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids.
What number were you?
I was number 7. My twin was number 8.
Okay.
And so there was there was a lot of trauma, and there was a lot of chaos, and there was some things that I need to deal with. It was really hard, and I kind of, as a kid of an alcoholic parent, or and the chaos and everything, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't even know it was in me. But at some point in my 20s, and there's a story to this, but I knew somehow. I went to therapy.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful that I went. And I didn't go for that because I didn't know. That's all that hidden stuff, that you don't know.
Well, we normalize because it's our experience. And so we think it's just normal. And then we recognize, oh, maybe there's a different way of working with this, or I can do this, feel this, think this differently.
Sure. And I knew something was brewing, but I had just broke up with my boyfriend, and something was brewing, and I thought, I'm going to go get help. So I'm so thankful I did. And in that process, I started digging deep, and I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of unforgiveness. I had a lot of fear. And it was an experience in my body. The more it came up, when you suppress, all is good. And then when it's time, it's like you can't do that anymore.
No, it's coming out.
It's coming out. It's such a scary thing.
Yeah.
I remember being so scared, like, oh, no. Here it comes. And I didn't feel like I had control of it. But I walked through with this, a counselor. But what I really realized was I needed to forgive my dad, because I had a lot of anger towards him. And this story, I mean, I can share how it all went down.
Please.
I feel it in my body talking about it. It is a beautiful story. By this time, my dad is sober.
Okay. And you're how old?
I am in my mid-20s.
Okay.
Yeah. And he, he was a great guy. I mean, but I didn't see that because all I could see was the way I saw him as a kid, and I was so scared of him, and I was angry at him for what he did to our family, and so that's another thing is you don't see really what is, you see as you are.
Yeah.
And anyways, so I remember I got home from work and I had two dogs. I lived by myself. My dogs were gone. And I called my dad. This is a first. When I think the stars aligned. I mean, this was really crazy. I called my dad and I was like, Dad, my dogs are gone. And he's like, well, we're coming over. Okay, there were so many firsts there. First, I would never call my dad. And I don't think he would just come over. Because
Okay.
he never did,
Yeah. But it worked out that way.
And it happened to be the day, again, the stars line, that I had told my counselor. He said, when are you going to talk to your dad? And I was like, I will. He says, when? And that really scared me because I knew it was coming. And I said, soon. And so I hung up the phone and I was like, uh-oh, I think it's now.
Yeah, today's
How
when
did
I'm talking
that
about.
happen? He came over. My dogs were gone. And it was the time. And I just finally said, Dad, I just don't want to be mad at you anymore. I cried from my belly. I cried from the deepest part of me. And he sat there and he said, I'm sorry.
Aw.
And he didn't make excuses.
Mm.
And he was just so present. And I tell you, I was different after that. I did not know that that would be called integrative wellness or integrative, healing. But it was. I was different.
I believe you.
And I have been different ever since. And I saw him differently. I started seeing what everybody was saying about him because he was such a giver in the community of recovery. And he really had dedicated his life after he got sober and to helping others. And people would come up to me, oh, your dad. And before that, I couldn't
hear it. Yeah.
No. I'm like, what do you see? I don't see that. And I could see him. It was like I had glasses on that were covered in bitterness, unforgiveness, and anger. And I literally took them off.
What do you think allowed you to let go? Because it's coming up. There's that. But it's also you kind of tune it to get out to release at some level. So you're in therapy, but what are you able to name? What specifically you were able to let go of, or why were you willing to forgive? Why were you willing to see him differently? Because there is it doesn't just happen. You have to be open to doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the most intense experiences, really, of my life. I think, when I went into therapy, something was brewing. I just broke up with my boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. First it was all his fault, and then you go and you're like, oh, I guess it's mine, And then I go, well, it's both of ours, but
it's not, we don't, right? We go the other side.
Yes.
Oh, wait, somewhere in the middle.
That's right. And I've been married to him now for 30-something years.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but, and we needed that time and it was very healing, but, yeah, I think I was done. I didn't want to hold that anymore. It was really heavy. Yeah. Once I realized what it was so heavy. It was dark. It was holding me back.
Well, I think what you just said is so important. Once you realize what it is, you can actually let it go.
Yeah.
But almost like where you're saying, I didn't know, or when you don't know, you just carry it around because it's part of you almost.
It is. It is. And that's why I think it's a very brave thing to go to therapy and say, I need to figure this out. Because we learn about ourselves.
We do, but I think it's also a brave thing to be sharing it and to be thank you, because this is how we heal.
Yeah.
Is sharing these stories. And this will not only heal you, even whatever's left to heal. I mean, like it will just continue that, but it will help heal anybody who is hearing Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I did an aging well class a few years ago, and I talked about food and nutrition and movement and sleep and all those things that are about integrative wellness. And at one point, I mentioned forgiveness. And how it can make us really sick. It can bind us. Our body knows. It can prevent joy. It can certainly affect our relationships. And I just talked about it as I talked about everything. And at the end of the class, I said, so what is the one thing that you're going to leave with today? Most of them were stuck on the forgiveness. I was so surprised because I was like, of aging well, they're talking about. So they were older.
Yeah.
And even there was some feedback like, I don't think I can forgive that. And here we are with an older group. And it's like, how long do we have to hold that?
Yeah.
When can we? I understand it takes a lot of courage. This is we need therapy too. We need somebody to help guide us somehow, some way, because it can be a really scary thing.
Well, to hold the bumpers. So
yes.
that, and to witness it also.
Sure.
It's hard to heal when there's no witnessing. I mean, this is, I think, why we go group fitness even, or group, it's like to be witnessed is so powerful. And then to witness yourself. You start to witness yourself when you are actually putting yourself in the subject position as you do in therapy. You start to see it different. You witness it and you can heal that way.
Sure. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me that stood out.
Okay.
But I think it's so. But it would surprise me under the context if I was in your shoes, and just to say it so casually and then have everybody relate to that piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel I understand what I know now about this forgiveness and this release of it's a release in our mind from the thoughts that can overtake us. It's our spirit being free to love, to have joy, and it's a freedom of the body because our body gets stuck in this angst and stuff, and it really makes us sick. So but I think we can move through this, like you said, when you're seen, when you're witnessed, you move through it. So this is my hope for people, that wherever they are stuck, body, mind, or spirits, whether it's a pattern of negative thinking or victimness or this holding on to anger, unforgiveness, or this, emotional eating patterns or whatever it is, there's hope. So that's my message.
I really love that. And so that makes sense. So your emphasis was in addiction when you went to school.
Yeah.
And do you work specifically with addiction? Or I know you do in a roundabout way through the holistic approach, but do you work with that specifically?
Not anymore. I was in the field for a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I lived in it. I mean, I grew up in it. You know what I mean?
I do.
I knew that perspective. So I know different perspectives, right? I know the child, and then also the recovery side and then working with others. So yeah.
So you had that example, that story that you shared. Thank you again for sharing that. It does explain also just how somebody could get stuck in a myriad of ways, right? Like getting stuck doesn't necessarily mean the number on the scale or the result from the blood test, although those are important indicators that something could be addressed. It's not just getting stuck there. You can get stuck in rigid mindset or the grudge or, there's, just being what I hear when you say, like, I was just tired of holding it. I think so many people can relate to, you get to that, you change when you have to, basically, right? You change when it's like the burden of this is so significant that I don't even know it. I've held on to it so tight for so long, but I'm finally ready to just risk letting go because I can't hold on anymore, right? Like that's
what you would hope, and I think I mentioned that book to you, Change or Die, right? And so there's that idea.
Yes, that's very appropriate to what I just said. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, right. So you get a diagnosis, or you lose another relationship, or whatever the case may be. This dysfunction in your life is creating. Because it is creating dysfunction.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's also limiting you. But so that you have this presentation of change or die, or change or suffer, change or whatever, lose, whatever it might. And people can still get stuck there. And some people will die. versus change.
Yes.
So, but like in this book, this idea is getting back to being, seeing, being witnessed. We do this in community.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really change like these significant ways by ourselves solo.
No.
We need community to do this.
Yep.
And that's what this idea of this book is too. Is like, how do people either change or literally die? And what is the secret sauce? And it's community.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love groups.
I do too.
Yes.
I do too. And the more I do therapy, actually, I think there's a time and place for individual therapy for sure. But especially if you're working through some trauma or some very, deep personal things that you need to bring up, like you're going to bring up and out. But then when you recognize the impact in your behavior or your communication skills or what the damage of that is causing you to put on others in your life, now the therapy is, how do you remove those habits in your relationships? How do you take the work that you've done and bring them back into life? And you have to have relationship community to be able to kind of fine tune that growth that you just did individually. So yes, you have to have that.
Yeah. I think too in groups, so you have this awareness through your own process, but you get awareness when you watch people.
So true.
You can see yourself, you can see how they respond, and you can identify. And also, I always encourage my people, sometimes they'll be kind of quiet. And I remind them, look, when you speak, you speak to everybody, whether it's you're sharing a challenge, other people have that same challenge. You're not alone. And if you're sharing a win, we celebrate with you. So it is all that community that is so important, and they witness themselves and each other, and that is a healing thing. I take Spanish, and I
you'll have to share a little bit about that because I love this part. I love this part of the story.
Well, I love taking group Spanish classes, and because when they speak, I'm always learning. And as much, and sometimes the one-on-one can get kind of intense, Probably the same with it, probably therapy, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But in a group, I'm always learning. So I always appreciate when people say things, and I'm learning new words that would never have even come up. But I also learn from my groups. I am always learning. They teach me, and so it's a beautiful exchange. But it is the community that is so key.
Yeah. Well, there's grace in that, right? Because you start to, I absolutely agree with you think you're alone in something, and you go into a group and you realize, oh, other people have the same thought or fear or insecurity or whatever the struggle is, right? So you see that, but then it's reciprocally, they see it in you. And so there becomes this inherent like grace that you have to have for yourself and for the others around. And it's the medicine, I believe.
Yeah. Such a good point, because sometimes we can have grace for others more than we can ourselves. And when we can identify, something that in them that is we can then maybe identify grace for ourselves. There's that idea, you don't give what you don't have. If you don't have that self-kindness or love for yourself, it's hard to give it away. I think we can. Sometimes we can certainly care for others more than we care for ourselves. We'll do for others what we may not do for ourselves.
Right. At our own detriment sometimes, right?
Of course, right. And that might be our story too, right? But I think that it is when we develop that grace for ourselves, and with this mindfulness and intention for the grace and the kindness and the healing, and that it expands. So not to say you can't find that for others if you don't have it, but it definitely expands. And I think it gets easier and maybe more genuine.
Yeah. Well, I think you trust it, like you see it and it becomes real. Like it becomes, well, maybe I do have something to offer. Maybe I do have something that's worth saying. Maybe I do have something that is relatable. Maybe I do have something that will connect me to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than being in that isolation, protected, I can't tell anybody this because they'll push me away or something. And then actually the opposite happens. Yeah. Right. I expose myself and I'm closer and I feel maybe vulnerable, but I feel closer too. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that's a whole other growth plate to move through. Right.
Yes. And again, getting back to witnessing that in community, because in my group, some people will share really vulnerable things. First of all, I'm so proud of them, and I really honor how vulnerable it is to share that. But there's always others that feel the same way. And as different as they may be in their life, they're in the journey of, they've suffered a lot to be in this spot, and they're kind of done with that. But change is complicated.
Very.
And it's linked to our childhood. It's linked to our family. It's linked to all the messages. It's linked to our story. It's linked to our wounds. It's linked to our culture. It's very complicated. And so even though they come to this place from all these different places of how they've lived and expressed this life that has brought them there, they still relate. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
I mean, we heal each other just by being together, for sure.
Yes. This idea, and I've been able to experience this with a beautiful prayer group that I've been a part of for a friend who had brain cancer. And this group of her friends from all over, we've been meeting every couple of weeks on Zoom. I've never met any of them except my friend in person. It is such a powerful thing. It's one of the most powerful things. And I think part of it is just this intense faith and love and hope that we have for our friend who is cancer-free.
Woo!
Brain cancer.
Amazing.
I know. And it's been such an amazing thing to be a part of that. But there's so much power in it, and there's so much healing, and this idea that where there is love, and I can add faith and hope and expectancy, but where there is love, there is healing. And whatever that healing looks like, there's healing.
In that way, I think of these people who change or die, right? To not change, I would imagine they don't have hope.
Yes.
And I mean, I guess being the inner healer in me is thinking, is it possible to just give enough love to where they can feel the hope? And in some cases it is, and in some cases it's not, or it's not from you, right? So being unattached to, or giving people the autonomy to make their own choices too.
That's right.
In healing is not always the easiest thing to do, but it's also very responsible, right?
That reminds me of a story. At my dad's memorial service, he was known in his community of recovery, and a man came up to me at his memorial service with tears in his eyes, and he said, "Your dad was at my first meeting, and he told me to keep coming back, and that we were going to love him until he loved himself." And he told me that story with just tears. And by that time, I don't know, he had decades, I don't know, of sobriety but it was such a profound moment in his life that he remembered it. And he was sober. It got him through because
amazing.
Somehow he believed my dad and said, I don't love myself, but I believe you. I believe you. I believe this community. And
I will let it in.
And I will let it in. And that's, again, the power of community. And even when we don't maybe believe in ourselves or think that we have what it takes, that's the power of community, to believe, getting back to that, where there is love, where there's hope, where there's faith. I have so much faith in the people I work with.
You probably believe in them way more than they believe in themselves, which is probably why you're effective, right? Like, I say this all the time in my work. If I believe that they'll get better, they'll get better. And it's not because I'm doing anything other than just providing the possibility. And then they step into the possibility and they do all the work, right? But they just need to know that it's possible. I think that the expectancy that you said, that word is so powerful. It's so beautiful, just to, you got this, you can do this. And then if you believe it, they'll start to kind of like I'm not sure, but maybe I want to believe it. Like,
Yeah.
what if she's right? You know?
Yeah. I'm very deliberate at communicating that.
Yeah.
And I know that they look at me, especially at the beginning, because I worked with them for months.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they really believe me, but I tell them enough.
Yeah.
And then they start believing in themselves. What an honor to work with these people.
Oh,
Yeah.
such an honor.
Yeah.
Such a gift to work with people at that level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I do want to let the audience know about your book and the magic of, I think for me, I relate to a few things that you've said already that I think my husband was actually one of the people that loved me enough to get me out of a few things that I struggled with before I met him. And I think it is so powerful to acknowledge that can work that way, right? That we just loving the people that are in our life, just presenting love, just believing in them in a way, and seeing past whatever it is that might be blurry,
Yeah.
is enough for somebody to. It's like they reflect you back in your. It's truly, it's the namaste, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
when I see a beauty in you, it's because it's in me. And so when somebody loves you in that way, you think, oh my gosh, maybe I actually have that love. Maybe I can actually give. Maybe I can receive. Maybe I can give it to myself. Maybe I can, all the things. And it's so big and it's so simple, right? It's so simple. I say almost I don't even know, I probably say it once a day in some different context. And already today that it doesn't matter how many more trainings I do or how many extra letters I get after my name, which I don't have a ton, but I mean, I have a lot of like certs, I get certified in blah, 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 blah. It's like, all this stuff, but it really comes down to do things that make you happy, eat foods that make you feel alive, be active every day, make sure you're hydrated, spend time with people that make you feel alive, limit the things that distract you from your vibration, from who you are. I mean, it's really kind of simple, but we get so overwhelmed, right? I know that's a go-to stress emotion for me. It's just like, because I want to do it all. And then I'm like, oh wait, now I'm overwhelmed because I often bite off more than I can chew. And then what do I do? And I have to break it down, chunk it down into bite-sized pieces, and literally, what's the one thing I can do today? Right? What's the one thing that will get me out of this? And sometimes I whiteboard it. Sometimes I will. My husband taught me this one. He would tell, get a whiteboard and just write every single thing, and then we would like make the diagrams or cross things out or group things together, and do all of that. And when you do that, it's similar to how you saw it in your body. It's like once you can deal with it. Once I see it, I can see, okay, I can hold all of that, but I can make my action with this one thing right now.
Yeah.
And you get your power back because you get your control back, not in and control is a state of mind and an illusion, but you get a sense of ownership. I should more well said, right? You get a sense of, I can make and create positive change.
Yeah. Well, and you can get unstuck from the overwhelm just by movement, just by saying, okay, I'm going to work on one thing. Because overwhelm can keep you just stuck. I don't know. I don't know where to start. I'm just like overwhelmed. And we won't even do one thing because we don't know where to start. It's like, if you ever walked into a room and you got to pack it or you got to check and you're like, okay, not today. I'm not doing it. Because you don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I've said that too. It's a project and I'm like, I don't know where to start. And so what happens is when we feel overwhelmed, and that can happen in so many different ways, right?
Internal, external, family, kids, work, money, all of it.
Right. In our head.
Totally.
Right? and we can just be stuck. And what I know is that people will stay stuck for years. They will not leave a situation because they don't know what's next. Well, we don't know what's next.
Ever.
So, but they'll stay out of fear of what they don't know. They won't leave something. They won't move something. They won't start something and they're stuck sometimes for years. Now, this is really sad because they don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
This idea, my inspiration for Start with One is start with one.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Do one thing, because when we're in motion, we're in motion. We're moving,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just sometimes it's that first step. You know what? The journey of 1,000 miles starts
Mm-hmm.
with one step.
Mm-hmm.
If we think I got 1,000 miles,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can't do that. Well,
No.
well, you can do one though, and then you
Yeah.
can go two. And that's really this idea.
Yeah.
And I think it brings the idea of change and healing super accessible to anybody.
Well, and I think we discount the ripple effect. Like if you choose, I think an example you have is like somebody that drank water who wasn't, and I mean, water, yeah, we all know it's good for you, but I mean, it's really good for you.
Yes.
Like your whole body, your brain, your skin, your sleep, your circadian rhythm, your hormones, and then you start to feel better. And then it's this one thing that cascades into your entire existence.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
and I love you worded something in here that's like you didn't have to eliminate anything. You just add some water to your life, right? Like it's also just, I think we're so programmed to, I got to do without and I got to suffer and I got to have so much discipline and I got to, and you do have to have discipline, but it's a different way. It's just like I could also add something, or I could also just tweak something and do one in a way that isn't this like overwhelming sense of restriction.
Yes. Absolutely. That's really accessible. This idea of adding in what we want, not focusing on what we don't. Like,
Mhm.
don't focus on what you can't have.
Yeah.
Just, don't put the energy there. Put the energy on that small action
Yeah.
that you want to actually bring into your life. Walking 5 minutes. I don't know, walking down the hall. I had
Yeah.
a gal that says she was walking down the hall. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, because she wasn't doing it before.
So it's great.
And then she went
Mhm.
outside, like to the end of the driveway. And then, so, gosh, I was just talking to a gal. She's like, guess what? And she's 60. She says, I'm a runner now. I'm like, what? She's like, I started walking and with a friend.
Uh-huh.
So again, community,
Yeah.
huge. And then we kind of started jog walking, and they just signed up for a 10K. She's like, I can't even believe this is me.
It's
But it
amazing.
always starts with something small.
Yeah.
She didn't just hop into that, but that's how it goes. Because once you're already there and you kind of you're mastering those small steps,
Mhm.
then it will automatically bring you to the next.
What do you have for somebody that says like, yeah, but that's not going to make a difference? That's a common mentality of right. I mean, it could be a blocking belief. Like,
Yes.
that's not. I am such a mess. That's not going to make a difference.
Yes.
Right. My life is so backwards. That's not going to move it forward.
That is, of course, I do know that's
Mhm.
what people will say, because there's not a trust for the consistency of those small
Mhm.
things, but we know that they add up. Everything adds up
Mhm.
when done consistently.
Mhm.
So I use the example of a donut. If you don't think one little thing is that big a deal, have a donut every day. Within 30 days, you probably need a new wardrobe. Your blood is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have headaches. You're going to
You're not
feel
gonna
sluggish.
feel good.
Your
No.
stomach's going to hurt. That's just one little donut a day. Just one. It accumulates, and somehow we can maybe connect with that
Mhm.
versus maybe because we've experienced it. But
Mhm.
if we can experience a salad a day
Mhm. Mhm.
consistently versus no salad, or expanding on fiber
Mhm.
or water
Mhm.
or a 10-minute walk. They seem so small,
Mhm.
but they add up. Everything adds up.
Yeah.
If you drop a penny in a jar and you
Mhm.
put it in, it will add up.
It will.
Pretty soon it'll be too heavy to even lift.
Yeah.
So everything adds up. And
Yeah.
once we're in motion, we're in motion. And it's a very easy thing to pick one thing and then you go, I got that. And then you start with a new thing.
Well, and it inspires you to the next thing.
Yes, it does.
Because you have a confidence, like you see the results, you feel that it's true.
Yes.
And when you know that, you can't unknow that. So then there's this a little bit more openness to what if I did the next one thing, right?
Yes.
What if I did, and then you're on your way.
So this is true, and this is behavior change. So people will know this. Okay, I'll do one thing. And I love it when people come up to me and say, I felt really this, but I remember what you said, start with one. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Mhm.
And whatever they do.
Mhm.
So whether it's even looking for a new job.
Yep.
So, but the thing is what I like to do also, and I have this in the book, is what does that look like? How do you plan? Because if you don't do it now, what is going to keep you on target to do it tomorrow and all week and every day?
Mhm.
And that's where the plan comes in. And that's the get in gear skills that I have. And set your goal. I'm going to walk 10 minutes a day.
Mhm.
Okay. Then that's the G
Mhm.
in goal. E is environment. What does your environment look like? Do you have
Mhm.
tennis shoes to walk? Do you have a buddy that's going to meet
Mhm.
you?
Mhm.
Do you have a dog? What
Mhm.
what is going to keep you in your environment walking for that 10 minutes? How are you
Mhm.
going to get out?
Mhm.
That's super important. You know who knows
Mhm.
this? Every single market, even on the web. The TV comes into our environment when they're selling things.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, right? It's crazy. All those commercials. And it's the repetition of that. And it really
Yeah.
changes us. Well, we can start, if we know the power of environment, we can
Mhm.
start creating it on our own, be really
Yeah.
deliberate.
Yeah.
I got my shoes there. I got this. I
Yeah.
got the dog leash, whatever.
Be set up. Have
You set up.
whether it's a few tennis shoes in your car or at your office or
Right. Yeah.
simple
Don't
things.
put your tennis shoes in
Mhm.
in the closet in the
Right.
the room that's locked. Make it easy. And then the A in getting gear is and ask for support.
Mhm.
Ask your partner to say, "You're going to go for your walk, or you want to go for a walk together, or I'll make this when you go for a
Mhm.
walk, or
Mhm.
you're going to meet your buddy at the corner, whatever." I mean, this
Mhm.
is getting back to
Mhm.
support.
Mhm.
It's just easier to do it with
Mhm.
support. And then R is reward, because what is rewarded is repeated.
Mhm.
And it can be as simple as just acknowledging, I just went for a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
Good. You can check it on it, those little stars on the kids' paperwork when they come home from school. That works. And we can do it for ourselves. We can put it on the calendar, a happy face, a check. We can text our accountability or support person and go, I did it. That is a reward. And that literally is that repeat reward. And it's really important. And so that becomes a plan. It's not about, do I feel like it, or what's the weather like today?
Mhm.
It's not about that.
Mhm.
It's, I have a plan and my environment is set and I got the support and I have this reward system. And all I'm going to do is this. I'm not going to worry about
Yeah.
anything else.
I love that you include a reward and I also think that what humans do sometimes is they make their reward something that can often cancel their progress.
Yeah.
So the examples that you just gave were wonderful, right? Some people are like, I'm going to lose 5 pounds and then I'm going to have that donut, right? It's like,
Yes.
at some level, maybe, okay, you can have one, but is that, you got to know yourself. Is that a wise choice? Or would you be just as satiated if you took yourself out to see a show or do, I don't know, took the morning off and went hiking? Like, would you feel just as good, right? So,
Yeah.
like, doing a reward that um, complements the person that you're becoming in that goal setting equation that you just outlined versus the reward of the old version of you that you're leaving behind. I think this is
Yeah.
such an important thing.
It is. And it's because we have been conditioned from years and years and years
Mm-hmm.
that food or things
Mm-hmm.
like this, that is our reward.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done that with our kids and
We have.
birthdays and, everything.
It's a happy moment. We need to eat and drink things. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easter, pile your basket with a
Yeah.
bunch of
Yeah.
yuck,
Mm-hmm.
candy and stuff. So yeah, that's our and that's our treat. That's our
Mm-hmm.
treat, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
our reward. And when I'm talking about a reward in this particular case, people can say, when I lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds, I'm going to go buy some new clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Good. But this idea of reward is immediate. It's connected to the
Yes.
10-minute walk. It's
Oh,
the
I
acknowledgement.
love that. Okay. So like that immediate while your neuroplasticity is
Yes.
soft and it's the dopamine hit and you're reinforcing.
Absolutely.
Yes, got it.
Reinforcement. Look in the mirror.
Got it.
You did it. Good for you. It could be
Mhm.
simple as that.
Mhm.
That is that reinforcement. That is the
Mhm.
reward repeat cycle. And then you can have a longer term reward, you're going to do
Yes.
this, but we want to acknowledge we did it. We did it.
Oh,
did it.
thank you for
We
saying
did
that
it.
and clarifying that, because
Yeah.
I also love that, because that's you giving yourself that reward too. And
Yes.
it's so, and that's so important to acknowledge your own progress, your own steps. I showed up for myself. Fantastic.
Yes.
The end, move on. But yeah, that's,
You know what's so funny is I've done different classes and even my trainer here that I work with. After at the end of the workout, we high five.
yeah,
That's like a reward.
it is. It is. I fist bump my buddies at the gym too. I just like, we did
Yes.
it. Go have a great day.
It's so true.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's an acknowledgement. We
yeah,
did it. I showed up.
yeah,
Yep. Good job.
yeah.
And that's a reward. I mean, if I left there and I didn't get it, I'd probably be like,
Right.
okay, I wanna, you know,
Yeah, you're left. I'm
I didn't get
incomplete
my
now.
reward.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's as simple as it can be.
yeah. I mean, I could not recommend just getting simple. That doesn't it. I almost I want to use a different word, because I think simple could mean like less than. It's not. It's so powerful to be so simple,
Yeah.
right? So there's so many ways that you explain in here too, and I really do love that you include the life cycle. You know, that you're looking at all the different places in your life, all the different areas of your life, different emotions, bringing in how to, there's things we have not talked about today, and we won't get to. So just letting the audience know that you do speak specifically to a lot about nutrition and sleep and lots of aspects to taking ownership of your well-being.
Yes, and a big part, because this is my journey too, is improving our thinking, because our thinking, this is the body, mind, spirit,
Yep.
and really identifying the patterns in our thinking
Mhm.
that are negative or limiting or fear-based, or where we are a victim, and all those
Mhm.
things. Talk about being stuck. Our
Mhm.
thought patterns can keep us very, very stuck.
Very much.
Yeah, and even that could be when we're actually in a program of working through things.
Mhm.
If we continue to nourish our body with these very unproductive thoughts, we can stay stuck. So a simple thing for that, as an example, I have people who claim I'm a worrier.
Mhm.
Well, that just reinforced that.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a worrier.
Yes.
Whatever they claim, right? But is to bring in a glass of water for whatever that is. So instead of worrying, I'm not going to talk about being a worrier. I'm going to declare that I am grateful that I am safe.
Mhm.
And gratitude is such a huge
Mhm.
changer. So just to say, I'm so grateful for everything I have.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my job. And you can just have one sentence,
Mhm.
whatever it might be. I am hopeful today. I am grateful. I am loved. I am
Mhm.
enough. Whatever.
Mhm.
One thing can
Mhm.
change with repetition. Repetition. This is
Mhm.
the water. This is the 10-minute
Mhm.
walk
Mhm.
that can literally start changing. And the idea is we crowd out instead of focusing on what we don't want, we bring in what we want, and the things that we don't want start to get smaller.
Yeah.
And that's that idea too. I
Yeah.
talk about that, the idea of crowding out too.
That's a great concept. Change requires change.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sayings. My
It,
middle son has heard me say it so much he almost got it tattooed on his leg.
Yeah.
Well, he TBD. He may end up doing that. But change requires change, and it's a beautiful thing because we can change and influence change. It's also a scary thing because a lot of us fear change, but the more I find that I am willing to just embrace the changes in my life, whether or not I'm initiating them or not, whether I'm ready for them or not, the more capable I feel at navigating change, right? It doesn't mean I do it perfectly, and it doesn't mean it's not scary. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean anything, but it does mean that I have more belief that I can do it.
You get better at it. You
You
get
get
better
better
at
at it.
anything you practice.
You get better at it.
And what a great thing is that when you change and you see the possibility that you've changed when maybe you didn't believe you could,
Yeah.
and even if it's a little thing, it's all good, and it builds that kind of that stamina and that
Yeah.
belief and faith in yourself. And then we can even, that's where expansion comes from,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then who knows where we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were talking a little bit ago, and I was thinking, you know, we have a lot going on in this life. Sometimes I think that really this work that we do is remembering who we are
Yeah.
and getting rid of the
And
noise.
then being that person.
And then being that, giving us permission
Yes.
to be that person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So easy to talk to you.
Thank you. It's been just wonderful. This is so easy.
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful.
So how do you live with your heart wide open?
I stay curious, and I think that's one of the biggest things versus judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I had judgments. Also, this being aware, self-aware, having this
Mhm.
mindfulness can stop any judgment for me.
Mhm.
I might have this temptation to judge something it should be this way,
Mhm.
or that's not right.
Mhm.
And I don't do that anymore. I'm more curious about it. I don't see things as wrong or right,
Mhm.
if this is right, then they have to be wrong. And if they're wrong, or if they're right, they have to be wrong. And it's like, no, I just don't. So I'm curious. I'm much more curious,
Mhm.
which feels very expansive.
Yeah. Yeah. Freeing, light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Interesting.
it's just,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it really does expand. And, this talk about your vibration, I think it lifts your vibration too, to say, well, it is what it is.
Mhm.
And there's a freedom to that for me.
And I don't really know how it should go.
I don't know how
There's
it should
freedom in
go.
that. Like, I don't know how it's supposed to turn out.
Right.
Like, not so free.
Yes. So, yes. And I'm always learning. I will say that. And that's probably the curious thing too,
Mhm.
right?
Love
Myself,
that.
the world, I have a deep faith. I really do. And that
Mhm.
has, I think it just keeps me grounded in the way of all is well. Because I just have faith in all is well.
I think that deep faith is very interconnected to the ability to embrace change, right? Because if you have a faith that it's all going to be okay, even if it's not okay,
It's right.
then
That's a big one. Yeah.
and that isn't built overnight. So for anybody that's wait a minute, I can't. That is a bigger acceptance, right? But baby steps.
Baby steps. But what a powerful way to live. Like whatever is going on, and I feel like I've really come to this, and I have felt myself move more and more towards this. I wasn't always like this, but I have opportunities to observe myself in situations, and more and more and more. All is well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here today and for sharing your light and your
Thank
beautiful
you.
work in your book.
Thank you.
Start with one, and we will put all of the places that the audience can find you and get your wonderful book and all of those things in the show notes. But just thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on the Heart Wide Open Wellness Podcast. We appreciate your time, energy, and attention. Whether you're watching or listening, please remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Stay up to date with us at heartwideopenwellness.com so you don't miss any upcoming events, offerings, or retreats. Until next time, keep your heart wide open.